develop and learn things. But if you're just doing the same wine all the time, your palate doesn't develop. And like I said, I heard where winemakers, they have a thing called cellar palate, which is the same thing, that they just tasting their own wines all the time. And it makes sense because if you're a winemaker, you're tasting everything you're making, and they just never try anything else. So
that was exactly where my mind went. I'm so glad that you brought that up because I was just going to say that for people who are in the industry, but especially on the production side of it. You spend so much of your time with your own wines, and sometimes you really don't get the opportunity to have the experience of tasting other brands, other producers more on this daily basis, especially.
Chris, you all set?
Yep.
Good evening. Time being 7 o'clock, I call the June 8th, 2022 meeting of the Franklin Town Council to order. Please pause for a moment of silence. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, announcements from the chair. All citizens are now welcome to attend public board and committee meetings in person. Meetings are live streamed by Franklin TV and shown on Comcast Channel 11 and Verizon Channel 29. In an effort to maximize citizen engagement opportunities, citizens will be able to continue to participate remotely via phone, or you may click the Zoom link that's on the posted agenda and on the town's website. And that phone number is 929-205-6099. And the meeting ID is 846-1580-5700. Then you have to hit the pound sign. Once again, the Zoom ID is 846-1580-5700 pound. And if residents are just interested in watching the meeting, again, it will be live streamed by Franklin TV and on Comcast Channel 11 and Verizon 29. Tonight, Councilor Jones is unable to attend but will be participating remotely. And I've asked Councilor Pellegrini to sit in as clerk of the council for tonight. She'll assume the duties. Okay, next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. Citizens are welcome to express their views for up to 3 minutes on a matter that is not on the agenda. The council will not engage in a dialogue or comment on a matter raised during citizens' comments. Town council will give remarks appropriate consideration and may ask the town administrator to review the matter. Is there anyone in council chambers that would like to speak on an item not on tonight's agenda? Quiet night. Okay, is there anyone out in Zoom land that would like to speak on an item not on tonight's agenda? I don't see anybody. Do you, Alicia? No. Okay, moving on. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. I first entertain a motion to approve the minutes from April 13th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion, additions, deletions? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay. Ledger,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Frangillo,
Yes.
myself, yes, Hamlin,
Yes.
Jones? Jones,
Yes. Yes.
Delaco,
Yes.
Mercer,
Yes.
unanimous.
Motion carries. I next entertain a motion to approve the minutes from May 4th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. Additions, deletions? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Ledger,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Frangillo,
Yes.
Pellegri, yes. Hamblin,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Delaco,
Yes.
Mercer,
Yes.
unanimous.
Motion carries. Okay, next item on the agenda is appointments. We don't have any scheduled this evening. No hearings either this evening. It's a good night so far.
Keep going if you pass.
Yeah. Okay, proclamations and recognitions. The first this evening is a proclamation recognizing the Franklin Flyers youth hockey team. And I'd ask Councilor Cormier Ledger to, guys, come forward.
Representing the team.
There they are.
They're here. Bring them all up.
All up.
Yep.
Job, Coach.
Hi, guys. So the town of Franklin hereby issues a proclamation honoring the Franklin Flyers under 14 hockey team on winning not only a South Shore Conference semifinal game in 8 overtime periods, but going on to win their South Shore Conference champs. Whereas on March 26th, 2022, the Franklin Flyers U14 hockey team competed in the South Shore Conference semifinals against the South Coast Panthers. And whereas Game 1 was tied 1-1 at the conclusion of the 3 regular periods and then continued for an additional 8 overtime periods. I couldn't even stay up for that. Let alone play in that many overtime. Whereas after 2.5 hours of tireless effort and outstanding performance, the Franklin Flyers scored the winning goal in the 8th overtime period, clinching their advancement to the next round. And whereas the Franklin Flyers went on to win South Shore Conference Championship the very following day on March 27th, 2022. Now hereby be it known that the Franklin Flyers U14 hockey team is hereby commended and recognized by this town council, the town of Franklin, for winning your South Shore Conference semifinal game in 8 overtime periods and going on to become conference champions. It's signed June 8th, 2022, Thomas Mercer, Chair. And on behalf of all of us, boys, congratulations. You did us proud.
Steve, I'm gonna do it one after, okay? And give everybody up in front here. Okay, kids, if you want to have a seat for just a couple of minutes, we have one more proclamation, then we'll bring you up here and we can get some good pictures in front of, with the entire council. Next, we have a proclamation recognizing the Franklin High School Theater Company. And I know Councilor Jones, who's unable to be here this evening, this was something that he wanted to bring forward. So I've asked Councilor Frangillo to read the proclamation this evening.
Yes, thank you. I got the pleasure of seeing this performance, and I can't say enough good things about this performance. It was done entirely from scratch, and the amount of time that they had to set up and take down was insanely limited, and within those constraints, the creativity of this set and like how it came to life and drew you in and put you into this new world, and all the individual performances were amazing, including Simon Jones, who was hilarious and crushed it. And you guys have a lot to be proud of. Anyway, the proclamation reads as follows. A proclamation honoring the Franklin High School Theater Company on being selected as a finalist in the 2022 Massachusetts High School Drama Festival. Whereas on April 2nd, 2022, the Franklin High School Theater Company took their one-act production of Cave Dream to the annual drama festival hosted by the Massachusetts Educational Theater Guild after advancing past the preliminary round on March 19th. And whereas many Franklin students received individual or ensemble awards for their performances on stage and behind the scenes at both the preliminary and the final rounds of the competition. And whereas their production of Cave Dream was selected as a top 14 finalist out of more than 90 schools competing in this statewide event. And whereas this outstanding achievement is especially meaningful as it marks the first time in the Franklin High School Theater Company's history that it has been named a finalist in this very competitive drama festival. Now therefore be known that the Franklin High School Theater Company is hereby commended and recognized by the Town Council of the Town of Franklin for being selected as a finalist in the 2022 Massachusetts High School Drama Festival. Congrats.
I just want to give Councilor Jones an opportunity to speak, because I know he really wanted to be here this evening. Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In all honesty, I'm just so happy for this group. I'm so glad we were able to get the proclamation for you guys. Your performance in Cave Dream, as well as all the other performances that the high school performing arts group, theater group has done is just absolutely tremendous. And I want to congratulate everybody for all the hard work that they put into making it. 14, 1 out of 14 the schools in the region, that is a tremendous, tremendous feat. And we can't say enough about how much we appreciate all the hard work and the wonderful performances that you guys put on. I know my son, Simon, who is here with me today, he just wanted to say how much of a great job he did as well. Yeah, he's like, I do. Mr. Grossman and to the crew, again, congratulations. And my apologies for my absence today from the meeting, but I look forward to the next performances that you guys.
Thank you, Councilor Jones. We'll take a 2-minute recess and we'll get a chance to get some pictures with both groups.
You could use the vanilla wafer as like a dipping, like to scoop the cheese.
I can see that.
So that works, right? Anytime you can dip a cookie into something, that
and I
works
think
for me.
that this one could work if you think cheese pair, because when you think of wafers and it's like, okay, what is the closest wine analog to a vanilla wafer? It's obviously an Oaky Chardonnay. An Oaky Chardonnay and soft cheeses like brie go really well together. So my only issue with these things, honestly, is the sugar. And it's different for sugary things and wine, that maybe that issue doesn't come across when it's sweet things like cookies and the cheese. So I would definitely give this one a try. And I might have some vanilla wafers in my cupboard, so maybe I should try vanilla wafers and some brie.
Yeah, we have to try a lot of these. There was another article. It was a Girl Scout cookie pairing that was by a cheese company. So I thought it was kind of slided towards their cheese, and I didn't really understand what they named certain cheese. I think it was their own specialty cheeses, but they did say Gouda with the lemon Girl Scout cookies that you mentioned earlier, lemon cookies, which I got to experiment with Gouda a little bit more, I think.
From their picture, the Gouda looks like a softer Gouda, not like a really hard kind of Gouda. So,
and that Havarti, is it Havarti cheese?
Havarti, yep.
With shortbread cookies, Girl Scout cookies. So those were 2 Girl Scout cookie suggestions. And then the last article mentioned from Wine Enthusiasts, talked about what wine cheese to pair with wine. So now just cheese, not cookies. But I like that this was talking about a different type of cheese that we probably never mentioned before, that cheeses that are flavored by wines. Have you seen these, Kim, or tried these? I think you mentioned earlier about some. Did you say some flavored cheeses?
Yeah, so there's a particular, there are actually a couple of cheeses out there. I know that there's one that is a harder goat cheese, and then there's another one that's it's an Italian cheese, but they're soaked in red wine. So they have this rind that is this really beautiful purple color, and the goat cheese one I believe is called the Drunken Goat, and that one is fairly widely available in a bunch of grocery stores. And it's a harder goat cheese, but you still get kind of that goat cheesy flavor to them. But yeah, this is a thing. There's I think a lot of variety with cheeses that have some combination of wine either for their aging or as part of the process.
So these wine cheese products, they can be brined, dipped, marinated, soaked, or washed in some form or another.
Right. So a lot of the time it's on the outside of the cheese, but I think every once in a while there can be wine added into the cheese as well.
It seems like every time I've tried one of these, I was disappointed that I didn't get the flavor that was advertised, either port wine cheese or Cabernet cheese.
Yeah, I don't necessarily find that I taste a lot of wininess in these cheeses. It's more, I mean, especially on a wine cheese that you're not going to eat the rind of.
Right.
And so, I mean, a lot of these I probably can eat the rind, but I usually leave the purple rind on the side of my plate and don't eat it.
They mentioned the history of the wine cheese goes way back to World War I, where people used to put their wine in cheese barrels to hide, right? They put cheese in the wine barrels. Is that what it was? To hide the wine or something?
I think so.
So they coated it. So you'd open the barrel and you say, oh, it's cheese in here. There's no wine, but there's actually wine underneath it. So I thought that was a good little history point there.
Oh, I feel like I'm scrolling through the cheeses that they talk about. And there's this one called Purple Moon Cheddar. I feel like I've seen this one before.
Yeah. Like a Cabernet. How would you, like these type of cheeses, would you go more when you're pairing with wine? Would you go with the texture or the flavor? So would you match a port wine cheese with port, or would you care more if it was soft cheese, hard cheese versus?
Yeah, I tend to do more of the textural pairings. But honestly, I feel like cheese can be very fungible. You know, it's very forgiving with what.
Should do more of that.
Call the June 8th Franklin Town Council meeting back to order. Next item on the agenda is license transactions. The first license transaction is a modification, change of hours. PH Franklin Inc., doing business as Raillery Public House, located at 280 Franklin Village Drive, Franklin, Mass. Clerk will read the license transaction.
Okay, change of hours. PH Franklin House Incorporated, doing business as Raillery Public House, is seeking approval for a change of hours on their 12 restaurant all alcoholic beverage license to change the opening time of 11 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Sundays. All departments have signed off on this application. Motion to approve the request of PH Franklin House Incorporated, DBA Raillery Public House, to change the opening time of 11 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Sundays.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Jamie?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, they're just asking for an extension of 1 hour on Sundays.
Questions or comments from the council? Councilor Chandler?
Of course, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, is Mr. Stowers on, I wanted to say something nice. I didn't know if he was on
I think
Zoom.
representatives, maybe?
I think Glenn.
Anybody for Raillery? Glenn?
Well, I am here, Glenn Stowers.
There he is. There he is.
I was going through our packet, and I read one of your favorite quotes from 25 years ago in the packet, and I can see why you're a successful businessman. The quote was, "The largest learning curve in your business was nothing is as easy as it looks, and the real path is a slow, methodical approach." I thought that was a great quote, and I can just see why you're so successful in business, and I'm glad that you chose Franklin for another site for your store. I mean your restaurant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Chandler. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Plagree.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just asking why you're planning to change, you would like to change 11 a.m. to an earlier opening, 10 a.m. on Sundays. That kind of bothers me. Have you had a lot of questions from people that you've been busy on Sunday mornings? Then that's why you want to do this? What brought this change, the idea of the change?
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for the time. We're interested in adjusting the hours to have brunch. We think brunch will be a real addition to the company and to the town, and we'd like to offer some competition to some other folks that have a brunch opportunity.
So this is to add to your brunch, your alcoholic license change? Okay, I understand that. Thank you very much, sir.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Glenn, thank you for coming tonight. You guys run a really good business, and thank you for opening up in Franklin. It's just, have the economic development has always been one of my big things, and you guys moving into town has been a big benefit for the community, on top of running a great establishment at the Gavel in Rentham. One of my questions, and I believe it's been brought up to your management already, is that according to Franklin bylaws, as far as alcohol is concerned, and us being the licensing authority for the town, one of our bylaws states that there needs to be food that's tangible, food of substance during the period of serving alcohol. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that bylaw, that you need to serve food of some substance up until, I believe it's half an hour before closing.
Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate it. We love being in Franklin. We love, the town has been fantastic. The people are outstanding. The youth is refreshing. I saw young folks on the show here earlier today. The youth has been a great experience. They give you hope again about the youth. But to answer your question, yes, we do. We serve food up to, we're within 15 minutes.
Good. I just wanted to make sure that you guys were clear on this. And really, it's a pleasure having you in town. And hopefully you guys will continue to grow.
We're looking at more.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Jones. Any other councilors? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Ledger,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Frangillo,
Yes.
Pellegri, yes, Hamblin,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Delaco,
Yes.
and Mercer.
Yes,
9 passes.
motion carries. Glenn, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Good luck with the brunches.
Thank you.
Okay, the next license transaction is New Farmer Winery, Farmers Market License, Crave Mead LLC, doing business as Crave Mead, located at 7 Main Street, Unit 1, Blackstone, Mass. Clerk will read the license transaction.
License transaction, Rachel Humphreys, Crave Mead LLC. This is a request for a farmer's winery, farmer market license to allow samples and a sale of bottled wine at the Franklin Farmers Market pursuant to Chapter 138, Section 15F. Motion to approve the issuance of a farmer's winery, farmer's market license to Rachel Humphreys, Crave Mead LLC.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Jamie?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, through you to the council, tonight's application is for Rachel Humphreys to be able to to have samples at the Franklin Farmers Market. I know this is an issue that's not new to this council. I also think it reflects really quickly, this application has been reviewed and approved by all departments. And I just want to give a quick plug to Lauren and Roger, who have done a phenomenal job at the farmers market. And I think this shows the interest in Franklin, and it shows the leadership that they've shown to bring in a lot more diverse businesses. And it's a great addition. So happy to answer any questions, and I believe Rachel is smiling on the Zoom call right here in front of us, if you have any questions.
Thank you, Jamie. Questions or comments from the council? Councilor Frangillo.
I never knew I liked meat until I tried her meat. It's very good. I would recommend it.
Thank you. Councilor Sheridan.
Yeah, more wine the better. Friday afternoon. Yeah.
One more, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Chandler.
Through you, this might be to Mr. Sorrell. We're granting the license tonight. Were they doing this Friday, serving wine this Friday at the farmer's market? Actually, that goes to Rachel.
No, we skipped last Friday because we hadn't gone to the meeting yet. So we just didn't go.
You're going this Friday then?
No, my next date is 7/15. I'm only signed up for 4 days.
Okay, thank you. Because I was going through this and it looked like there had to be a 7-day waiting period
Yes.
after we approved it, so I just want to make sure that was all in order.
Thank you.
Okay, that was it. Good luck with everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Chandler. Any other councilors? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay, Ledger,
Yes.
Sheridan.
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Frangillo,
Yes.
Pellegri, yes. Hamblin,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Delaco,
Yes.
Mercer,
Yes,
passes.
motion carries. Congratulations, Rachel. Good luck.
Thank you so much for everyone's help on this. I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll see you there.
Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is presentations and discussions. Discussion, North Grove Priority Development Area Redevelopment Concept. Urban Land Institute's Technical Assistance Panel and Mass Development, it's a mouthful. For sure. Jamie, would you like to do the lead-in?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, and through you to council. I'm going to let them do a lot of the introductions and talk about their organizations, but this is really exciting. For those of you who have been on the council, even those that are new, you know a lot about New Style. I don't need to say any more than that. I just want to give a quick plug to Brian Taverner and Amy Love, who have, for many, many years, my predecessor, all of you, have been looking for a solution to that property off Grove Street. And we were really excited that Brian applied for a grant last year to fund this exercise today. And we were lucky enough through Mass Development. Mary's here tonight for Mass Development, which is kind of a quasi-state agency, as you know, who has deep pockets and tremendous expertise at that agency. There are folks over there I've worked with for over 20 years. And they really are a transformative state agency across the Commonwealth with incredible financing legs to be able to do incredible projects. And for them to be able to be here tonight and finance this grant study is incredible. And I also want to give a plug. They're going to talk, and most of the folks here tonight are from the Urban Land Institute, which is really one of the most premier, globally recognized real estate and land use firms. I had the pleasure of working with them a couple decades ago in my first job, and they really are one of the most elite and premier organizations of expertise on land use. I would note that this team in front of you has been here all day. They have talked to all of the property owners around that area. They have interviewed some of the businesses coming into today. They've done site visits, they've been outside, they've had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I believe. I think there's some leftovers also in room 205 after the meeting, if anybody's interested. Smelled really good. But in all seriousness, they've been here a full day, they've been doing interviews, they did a charrette, and nobody knows what is going to be on the screen tonight. We don't know what their recommendations are. I have not seen them. Brian has not seen them. Amy might have gotten a glimpse. So this is really exciting. They have a full PowerPoint presentation that they actually drafted just over the last few hours. And so the community is excited to learn exactly what their ideas are based on their full day analysis today. From some of the country's leading experts are right now in the room on this, and I'm waiting with bated breath to see exactly what they say. One more quick note, Mr. Chairman. I just want to also make a quick note that earlier this year, just about a month ago, Governor Baker filed a piece of legislation using some of the federal stimulus money that the state got, and while it's not approved in law yet, okay, very important clause. But I do want to note, and I do want to thank Mass Development as well as all the state agencies who have been watching and helping us on this project. There is a proposal in the governor's budget for assessment and remediation at the New Style property in Franklin for $284,000. I just want to thank them and the governor and the administration for recognizing this incredibly complicated property and project. And I have sent a note to our legislative delegation, Rep. Roy and Senator Spilka and Senator Roush, to do what they can on their end with this legislation to see if we can get that through. So what would be even better is if we have a way to spend that money. And so now I will pass it over to Ed from the Urban Land Institute and Mary from Mass Development to get us started tonight. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you.
And while Alicia sits here and we're getting the, so I gave them a heads up, we're a Google organization, but they still have PowerPoint, so we're going to try to get the screen going here in a second. Ed, I don't know if you have any intro
well, yeah,
remarks.
I'm just going to, just in the absence of time, I'm going to start and introduce who the Urban Land Institute is. Thank you very much, Jamie. So the Urban Land Institute is a nonprofit organization. It's about 46,000 members internationally, and we're comprised of all manner of experts in the real estate industry. So we have agency folks, we have town managers and real estate focused individuals, civil engineers, real estate lawyers, et cetera, environmental folks. So we tonight are the members of the technical assistance panel, and what we do and in the Boston area is we come together to look at problems that towns and municipalities have, and we assemble the appropriate experts to look at the condition that's presented to us. And so what we've done for this is made sure that we had the appropriate folks in civil engineering, environmental. We have Mary, as mentioned earlier, from Mass Development, who has a background in helping with these type of sites that are contaminated. So, so I'm ready to introduce everybody. We had a nice slide up there with everybody, but I'm just maybe waiting for the technology to catch up.
Yeah. Right here. Give me a second, I got another idea. PDF it.
We like ideas.
Yeah, there you go.
So
Yeah, go ahead, yes.
I'll go next. My name is Mary Ellen DeFrias. I'm the Vice President for Community Investment for Mass Development. And we have been working on this project with the town for close to 5 years. So, and I will correct you, there's actually $284,400 in that
Town
line.
administrators round, you know.
You round, we're very exact here in the finance world. And we were happy to have that included in the economic development bond bill that Governor Baker was so kind to help us move forward. We realize brownfields are a problem. Communities don't have the money to fix them. And we, while we understood why the town has been waiting to kind of figure out a plan to move forward, we're excited to be part of this TAP today in helping you guys figure out how to move this project forward. And hopefully you like our ideas. If you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Joe Marini. I do a lot of private development and construction. I also do sales with Gibson Sotheby's.
Hi, and I'm John Cusick with Bowler Engineering. I'm a principal with the firm. I actually live in Franklin, spent more time in Mrs. Pellegri's house than she probably cares to remember as a kid.
Uh-oh. Keep going. Keep going.
He was always welcome.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Almost there, guys. Apologies. I'm Jim Effernan. I'm the other co-chair, impromptu IT individual. PowerPoint's not wanting
Oh, wait,
to
'cause we
cooperate.
don't, nobody's seen it yet, so we'll wait.
Exactly. We want to show it to you first. The PowerPoint was too big, so.
You have it up?
Yep.
Okay.
Let's just switch
You got it?
Yeah.
Good.
So you just need that.
Take this off.
Yep. Well, it's not tonight.
There we go.
Way to go,
All right.
Alicia.
Yay. It came up for a second, then it went away on us.
Yeah.
There we go.
So why don't we just jump to the.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and then,
Okay.
so you can continue on from here.
Okay, all right, yeah, so getting our bearings straight, just to go back real quick. We started with this site here, and together with Mass Development and being invited here by the town of Franklin. I was gonna say, I admire your IT, and sorry, we couldn't match that because you do have a fascinating IT and very well structured here, and I appreciate all the monitors you have, so do appreciate that and appreciate you guys hosting us in the food. Again, I'm Jim Heffernan, co-chair here with Ed O'Rourke. I do commercial real estate development in the area, and we were put together as professionals from the Boston area, Mass Development, financing, brokerage, environmental, and the three questions we were brought here for were, first, is the town's North Grove PDA EOA revitalization and access roadway project feasible given existing conditions and constraints, or are there better options? And we're going to get into that. Can the town create a public-private development partnership to implement the proposed project or other project conceived during the TAP? And we're going to get to our other project conceived idea. And then what civic process you should follow. So we're going to give some recommended steps. It helps to see pretty pictures, and here we have the area we looked at, and the day really started, and this process really started several months back with the application. Some of us on the real estate committee at ULI reviewing applications, looking at what we could do to help, because we don't, we're volunteering our time, and you need help and expert advice, and so we try to put together the right teams. That takes about a couple months process. And then really the town and Brian and staff put together a briefing book, which is a lot of information they had put together. So really appreciate the work they've done. We have a briefing meeting, what we call a briefing book meeting, the week before our full day here, where we run through the materials that were provided to us. And then we get to do a site visit, and that started this morning. And really, there's a lot to read on paper. When you actually go to the site, it's really telling. And
You think?
yeah. And here in particular, if I had we're still here. If I had a little laser pointer, it's really two different ends. And the site visit started on the right side with all the little parcels and the the town-owned property. And then we went over on the Forge Parkway side to see it from the other angle from the hotel parking lot. We also had stakeholder interviews. In other taps, that could be a whole assortment of people, but since this is such a focused project and targeted area, we mainly talked to the property owners in the area and town officials. Two of the owners who happen to own the largest areas here weren't available today, but we did talk to them on Zoom on Monday, realizing we should talk to the folks that own substantial acreage in this area, and that information was vital. And everyone we met with, everyone in town is very polite, and we felt very welcome, so I do appreciate that. To provide context, too, for everybody, and maybe this is not new to you guys, but the question was based on this road, for lack of a better phrase, we call it the Green Line, but it's not the Green Line extension to Franklin. This was a proposed road to go kind of connecting those two dots of where we did a site visit, and whether that is a feasible option given the constraints. And after looking at that and the site and interviews, we had a lunch. We talked about different ideas. That's when the creative juices start flowing. For me, that's when the coffee started to hit. And then in the afternoon, we put together this presentation. And it's worth noting, this isn't where we stop tonight. After we get to sleep on a few of our ideas, we put together a more formal written draft presentation, and that will be issued in 10 to 12 weeks. So what did we hear?
All right, so what did we hear? The good news is everybody agreed the site needed to be cleaned. So that made me feel good because, we've done some assessment work on that. But there were some challenges that everybody did recognize, right? That there's some topography issues. It's not the easiest land. The Old Forge Road is no longer recognized. I keep calling it Old Grove Road, so I was really confused this morning. And there seems to be a need to bring everybody onto the same page. There's a lot of different ideas, and really, it became clear to us that all the stakeholders need to be going in the same direction. And it's interesting that when you speak to each of the stakeholders at various times, they've considered selling or buying or looking at other options for their properties. So there's definitely some interest in exploring other alternatives, so nobody was a hard no. But overwhelmingly, there was a lack of appetite for discussion about the proposed Green Line. And that was loud and clear from everyone that they really weren't jumping up and down about the road. So that was helpful for us to hear that. So where did that take us? So we went out and, looked at what is out there. And I've had the pleasure of actually being here several times on this site and having walked it and seen it in both the winter and the summer. So I know what it's like when you can look through the trees. And there's some existing conditions that do exist, not only with some of the debris, although kudos to your DPW for cutting the grass. That was helpful in walking across it today. But there's still chemicals in the ground. We've done some remediation that has removed some of the metals from the ground. But overall, and I will try not to butcher this, there are still chlorinated volatile organic compounds in the soil. There are still some polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and there are still TCE and PCE chemicals that have not been removed. What we've done so far is we've done the assessment, and we've done some removal of the metals, which were dangerous. We still haven't looked underneath the building. We had recommended it come down. Wasn't feasible, and we really need to look underneath that building. And that's part of what was built into that number that we had put in for the governor's budget, was understanding that that still had to happen. So what are our assets here? So the town already owns one of the parcels. You took it in tax taking, you have recognized you need to clean it up, and that's a great thing that you've started to address the issue. You have fantastic accessibility here. You have 140 and I-90, 495 right there. that gives you the connectivity to the highway system that industry likes. You have the commuter rail station. We all know commuter rail is good. Forge Parkway is there. And in addition, the town has some really helpful existing zoning bylaws. Both your traditional bylaws and your special overlay districts really provide you with an array of options that we can work with. So when we were tossing around ideas, everything we could find was covered by something that was already there. So there's no need to really reinvent the wheel on that. Of course, that does leave us with some challenges. The site is still contaminated, as much as we would like to wish that weren't so. And we are dealing with multiple parcel owners. So the town has one parcel, but we have at least one other we know is contaminated. We have one that has had some remediation. We all need to work together. Some of the parcels are landlocked or lacking street frontage, which presents some challenges. You do have Mine Brook there, and we need to be very careful about what happens with the brook. So that needs to be taken into account with the cleanup process that you would follow. You have interesting topography, so we need to kind of work through how that has to work. And then, as I mentioned before, the existing building conditions. We still don't really know what's in the back part of that parcel, underneath the part of the building that came down. And, clearing out and being able to delve into what's there would be helpful.
Okay, so from the recommendations, again, back where we started, we had to answer really three questions. The first of which was, is the access roadway project feasible, given the constraints that exist on site? And that's really what we focused our time on. And then, based on a close look of that and the constraints that you just heard, we don't think that's the best option for that site based on the constraints that are there. So we then took a closer look to say, if that's not the best option, what might other options be to achieve some of the goals that the town's trying to get on the property? If you want to hit that, those are the parcels up front, the town parcels, the yellow one in the middle, and then up to the north, you've got, I think, World Granite, and down to the south is the Martial Arts Building. So if the town pursued a land swap, perhaps, and essentially switched the Martial Arts Building down south and combined those two lots, that would really have two benefits, with essentially overlooking some of the constraints that we had and kind of putting them in to the side. By combining the lots, it would allow us to properly investigate and remediate that property. A big challenge right now is the town can't remediate the property they have as the abutting properties connected to it. You just can't do the work that needs to happen. Second benefit is once that project is done and remediated, the town will now have a parcel that's actually more favorably marketable. With the land like that, those are two very small parcels, and there's only so much you can do with it. If you combine those two parcels and put them together as shown, you have a lot more options with what you can do with that, particularly once it's a clean lot. Beyond that, we just looked at the zoning that exists on site, and there's actually a biotechnology use overlay. It's just on the other side up on Forge Parkway. We thought it made sense to extend that zoning down to this site to provide some added benefit to the properties in question here, so when they start getting marketed and look for future development opportunities, even though there are favorable bylaws in town, there's more options now with this overlay. The second question really had to do with a partnership, and could one be achieved between public and private to reach the goals we're all looking to do? And I think the answer is yes. There's many avenues available, particularly with EPA, Mass DEP, and Mass Development right now, with funding that is available to help with this cleanup. And if you can leverage those three agencies together, it will really maximize the benefit of what you can do on that property to achieve the cleanup. And that opportunity does exist.
Oh yeah, we did a switch on this relief picture here. So the third one was kind of, is a way to put it all together. And again, the roadway is a idea that we get where the process and the thought process is behind it, but given current constraints, we thought, you know, there's a better way of dealing with the way the stream cuts off the town property and the property next to it, and a way to clean that up separately kind of then benefits the whole from out of there. So how do we go about doing that? And really key is to discuss a sale with the 25 Grove Street owner just to the south of the town property to see if acquisition is even possible. If that is possible, then doing a land swap with 15 Grove Street allows them to relocate their business, quite possibly also relocate their office across the street into one site, and then enables the town then to, with a combined lot, clean it up, truly clean it up properly, because now you're not gonna have a building hanging off of another one, and combine the use there that you can market it to developers or property buyers or anyone that wants to revitalize that corner in a much better way than if it was cut in half and you still had maybe a dirty side across and a site that was just being cleaned up and you just spent all this money to clean it up with. So the first step really is a discussion with 25 Grove Street to see if this plan can even be put into place. The remediation, combining those, it's working with the EPA, which you have been, Mass DEP, Mass Development, which you have been, putting funding on a site assessment and a remediation of that combined site. Concurrently, again, your zoning, we started looking into it, and sometimes we have to go into these on advising how to change your zoning code or things to put in, but it's in a business district. You have great uses listed in there. You have great uses that aren't allowed in there, so you're not gonna get things you don't want in there. The one thought we thought would be nice to add was the biotechnology, particularly in the economy we're in now, how the greater Boston area is a world leader in biolab and biotech. And along 495, you get a lot of biotech manufacturing. If you kind of expand that to cover all the parcels into the 2 Grove Street, that really made a lot of sense to us. Not necessarily saying you're gonna get lab space there, but it's just providing extra options.
And just on that, on the remediation, I would add that if you were to combine the 2 lots and the town owned them both, they would now be eligible for the grant funds. Whereas right now, you're reliant on the owner of 15 to apply for a loan to clean his property. And that's may or may not be something that could happen, but by having it all as one, now it's under the town's control to clean it to the level that the town would like to see that property cleaned to.
Yeah, and then by doing all of that, there were a lot of parcels we're looking at now. We're focused really small. The Renari parcel and the parcel next to the hotel, those things those can change over time and really see benefit as well as the community seeing a tremendous benefit in that corner, the landscaping, the hardscaping, and seeing it really done right along the railroad and along Grove Street.
So once remediation is complete, just doing some hardscaping and landscaping, making it pad ready is a good step to take, really, to increase the desirability and marketability of the site. The site, with flexible zoning, is going to give more options to a buyer, thus increasing the market value and increasing the sale price for the town of Franklin. Oh, I'm sorry. So I was just saying for the zoning, by expanding the zoning to include biotech, it's going to increase the market value and the desirability of the parcel. As Jim was mentioning, biotech's no longer in Cambridge; it's going out. For a final phase, recommend reaching out to a commercial broker to sell the property, and some good uses that are community focused, maybe co-working space, maker space for artists, creative economy stores, and professionals, retail component. You can have gym, yoga, fitness. These will all be uses that can really change and really make a improvement to not only this site but to the surrounding areas.
And again, we were here all day. We have the benefit of dropping in and then dropping out. Where you've been living with this for a while, and we'll continue to live with it. But we're hopeful this is some kind of outside thoughts, some out of the box thoughts, that fresh look at it, and we will continue to fine tune our thoughts in the final written report. But are definitely open to questions. Any other comments will be helpful.
Great, thank you. I was expecting one more slide, the slide that went and it was all cleaned up. But you guys didn't bring that slide. Questions, comments from the council? Councilor Frangillo.
Yeah, thank you. This is great. Just to get clarity, I know that you went through it a little, but where did the money come from? Just help me understand what money has been spent so far and by who.
So
who paid that?
So for the grant for this process, I believe it was Mass Development.
Right.
Cool. And the town has done several $100,000 worth of remediation in the past, but the price tag, overall, my predecessor dealt with this. Many of you did, where the price was just always, like a lot of things, there's just too many priorities. And when you're up against dump trucks and fire engines and schools and facilities, it's just hard to carve out. And once you get started, and Mary Ellen might know more about this than I do and any of the other engineers, we have applied for a lot of EPA grants in the past. I think some of those have been diluted over the years where they haven't been authorized by Congress, or EPA's moved money around. But it takes, I think, a public-private effort across the board on something like this to reach the full potential of the parcel. And so we've been kind of waiting for this process through the pandemic, obviously, but to try to figure out where are we going from here, so we don't just keep throwing hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars at this with no real end goal in sight and no real end zone to aim for. So I think that's the summary. I don't know, Mary Ellen, if you have anything else.
EPA has come in with some funding. That was how the metals got removed. Mass Development has done one site assessment that really we need something else to happen, and better access to the parcel, whether it's by taking the parcel next to it or somehow figuring that out. So that's where we've kind of hit the wall, and where even with the town a couple of years ago, we put the halt on. But the $284,400 number was the estimate from probably 3 years ago to start doing the work. So we know that's not enough, but EPA is at the table, and they're also committed to working with this, and Mass Development is committed to working with this. So we feel the timing may be right with the CARES money to help towns move this forward, and it's really important for us to see the economic value come out of this, and that's what the focus we were looking at today.
Appreciate that. Can I get some assurance that there is a path where we get more money out as a town than we put in going forward? My fear is that we feel as though we put money in, and so we have to keep putting money in because we've already started. But if we're just going to keep throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars in as a town, and we're never going to get that back, then what are we still doing? So it sounds like there's enough federal, state, and maybe even private support so that we don't keep throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars of town money in. I'm hoping to get some assurance.
I would say that the governor's bond bill was a very clear indication that he's taking this seriously on that level for the funding, for the cleanup. My guess would be I can't make any assurance on some of the other things the town may have to do to make all of this work. But that, as far as the remediation is concerned, both Mass Development and EPA, and we were in conversation with EPA today, would like to see the site cleaned up. And that part we can help with. I can't promise more than that, and there may be other things the town has to do.
Yeah, and it's not an easy site, but the idea behind the land swap is that you get the two parcels together to clean it up. It's a lot easier to say than done, but the idea being with a whole site on that corner with a marketing effort, maybe the town can see some money coming back and some fruit from its labor from 15 years of dealing with this.
To follow up on Councilor Frangillo's question, but we can't do we don't have the room to do the cleanup unless we get the other parcel. So until that happens, we're pretty much dead in the water. Am I understanding that correctly?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes. I think incremental, I think Mary Ellen kind of confirmed tonight, the appropriation proposal in the governor's bill will help the next step, which will, if we were lucky enough to get that, I mean, we'd have to get a contractor to take down the structure. But that's another that's a big step that we've been waiting a long time for. So this came out of nowhere a month ago, and you can only imagine when I saw it, I was like, whoa. I was like, where, and that's why I'm giving her so much kudos for sticking with us on this. But that's a big step. And then after that, they said it's easier said than done, but we hadn't even thought of the land swap concept. But what I'm hearing to Councilor Frangillo's question is, if that were to happen, and we were able to be successful, whether it's soon or in long term, the return on investment to the town is not only the return on investment to them, we could end up selling those two parcels together, which is going to be much more attractive given the assets of the location. You also have a clean site, but just to remind everybody, think of the property tax revenue from new growth that you would get from any one of the uses that were pitched, even if it was arts and culture and the creative economy. That's still at the top of Grove Street, a great entranceway into Grove Street, whether it was labs or whatnot. So I think when you say return on investment, I would never sit here, and I don't think anybody else would make that commitment that we would get that money back. But I'd like to believe that in a real estate market like Massachusetts, with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which is the next property owner right below, MassDOT, I believe, and then MassDOT's across the street as well, there's a lot of federal and state land around there. They also mentioned the Forge Park property right across. You can't see it, but obviously across the way. So maybe there's a way where all those agencies and stakeholders can get together at some point, and it would be a marketable. I also like the idea of probably a broker, which we hadn't thought of, somebody who's obviously more expert in real estate than necessarily us. So just a couple thoughts, but I don't think anybody's going to answer Councilor Frangillo and say, if we put in another $1 million, we're going to double our money for sure. I don't think anybody could honestly make that kind of a commitment.
Councilor Frangillo, you still have the floor.
Yeah, and your question was similar to my third question, which was, this seems amazing. It seems like we have an idea here that we didn't have before, with a potential for really finding some return on investment. But what if they say no? Are you presenting us a plan B, or if that happens, call it quits? Give up. Are we going to be seeing that as part of your proposal?
Well, yeah, I think we can probably expand on that. For instance, we spoke about the land swap, and that if that parcel that we wanted to have purchased wasn't available for purchase, then the town may know of other parcels somewhere in the vicinity that could be similar industrial for that purpose for the granite shop. And just to back up on that those parcels were one parcel at one point in the past, and there's just a not competent party wall in between the two spaces under the same slab, so you really know that the contamination that's under the slab of the new what is it,
New style.
It's been a long time.
Is also under that other slab, so it's, it's a common contamination issue, so.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm feeling more optimistic than I was yesterday about this, so that's cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Frangillo. Councilor Hamblin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair, thank you for being here and actually doing this brainstorming for us. It is very nice, as Councilor Frangillo said, to have an idea of what we can do that we haven't thought of before. Actually, the chair asked the question that I was going to ask about both properties, but I think I have another question about, so we don't know really how bad the contamination is in that area. Is that correct? I'm just trying to clear up.
So, I mean, there's a lot of reports that we've looked
Right.
at, and I am not an engineer. I'm a money person, so bear with me here. But I think we have a handle on it. I think the concern is some of the hot spots. We don't know how extensive they are, and we'd like to wrap our head around what it would take. We didn't find anything that was causing us, I mean, if there were asbestos in here, this would be a whole different story, right? Because the costs are so high for any removal, and they can escalate very quickly. As scary as some of the chemical sound, they're not things that we're unfamiliar with or how to deal with remediation. So I think that while that cost is a couple of years old, so I do know it will go up just because, unfortunately, try and find a contractor right now.
I know, yeah.
You know, but I don't think that you're looking at a complete unknown. I think you're
Okay.
looking at LSPs in general like to have everything. And when they can't get that last little piece of information, they leave themselves enough room to say, I can't guarantee because I couldn't do everything.
Right,
And nobody's gonna crawl in a building that was partially coming down to do some testing.
Well, and this
I
brings,
get it.
this brings up a thing we talked about quite a bit, and so I appreciate this, we didn't bring this up. In swapping with the land to the south where the karate studio is, there's a lot of wells there too, and we don't know what necessarily the cleanup will be, but if the marble or another light industrial kind of type use is there, you don't need a strong standard of cleanup like you would if it was a single-family home, or people were gonna put a garden, or you're gonna put a daycare.
You're not
So,
doing any of that.
You're not doing any of that, you're really focusing,
You're not doing any of that.
in our mind, we kept wrestling with this idea of the brook.
Right,
And,
yes.
and get, well, what if we took care of everything on that side of the brook, and then it will just enable everything else to its south to develop?
Right.
And, yeah, there's some cleanup across the brook, but you won't have to do such an extensive cleanup.
Some has been done there, which is why we have the wells, and obviously, there is an AUL on the property and activities use limitation plan that's allowing the karate school to be in there, which is a good sign.
Okay, that was great, thank you. What about, I guess you just answered the question, but I'm not sure. I was gonna ask you about other sites in that area that need to be cleaned up, and I think there are. And these things, in my mind, they need to be cleaned up. Like, we need to take care of the environment, we need to make sure that, we don't let this go into the brook. So, but I'm sure there are experts out there that can help us make sure it doesn't leach out even further.
I believe you have an LSP on contract who has looked at this and would present an updated plan when you apply for the funds. So it's important to understand, even though the governor would like you to have them, we still need an application filled out
More
for them
paperwork.
that would have a scope of work with an LSP who would take all of your concerns and incorporate that into the plan that they would write up for us to look at for funding.
Excellent. Thank you all so much for your long day here in Franklin, but I think we all appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Hamblin. Councilor DeLorco?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming out and trying to explain that. But Mike, Council Fidelli and Hamlin kind of hit on what I was thinking. The brook is what I'm really concerned about now. We're gonna have to clean that brook itself, right? That's gotta be contaminated too, right? Have anybody done any testing there?
I think based on the compounds, if it's not the metals that may have gone into the sediments, that I would assume the volatile organic compounds are volatile, so they'll just go into the water and then dissipate into the air, so they don't have residual contamination.
Oh, they don't.
They're locked in the soil at a great concentration, and what happens is they off-gas into the building.
Yeah.
What you need to do is remove enough of that soil, and then put under the new slab, put a remediation system where you're basically taking that vapor and bringing it above the building and into the air in a passive remediation scenario.
So what, and it looks like in 2008, the LSPs that you had identified the metals as a concern, which is why the removal was done in 2008. And in fact, in 2012 and 2013, when they went back to test, they determined no additional testing was needed on the metals. So I think we're confident in the metal area, and like you said, the other chemicals are a little bit easier to deal with.
To remove. Okay, I was just wondering what was gonna get into the sediment, because if we did the land swap, and I don't know how this is done, but could that get into be a super site?
Superfund site.
A
Superfund site?
I'm not sure you're gonna rise to the cost.
To that, I'm just,
Which you don't, yeah, I would really, really hope not.
Yeah.
That's
So
millions.
would we.
I grew
that's
up in New
federal money,
Bedford,
that's-
so I'm very familiar with Superfund sites, and,
I grew up in Hyde Park, and they're
yeah.
doing the Neponset River right now, so.
I would like you not to have to do that, but no, I don't see this as being, something that is gonna
That big?
trigger. Yeah,
That big,
you're not
okay.
even at, in order to get to the level where we would consider you a priority project for mass development, we as an agency would need to spend over $500,000.
Okay.
And you guys, you're at 35,000 right now with us, so you've
Oh,
got a
okay.
long way to go before I even have to go to the board and explain that you would need to be a priority project.
All right, I was just wondering where we were on that, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor DeLarco. Councilor Cormier Ledger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to all of you for being here tonight. My question really was somewhat what Councilor DeLarco had. I'm just wondering, is there a time frame for the contaminants? And, I'm just, obviously concerned about the brook, but also the land and the fact that there is a nearby karate school with kids playing all the time, my own boys included, who I know there's things that happen behind that building all the time. So should we be concerned that we need to maybe put some sort of a barrier around that so that the kids aren't wandering over there, or are there thoughts about that property?
I would check with your LSP, but my inclination is when the EPA was here and did the cleanup, if they didn't put that requirement on the site, then you're fine, because they would have shut this down if they thought, when they were involved, because anytime there's federal money involved, they are very clear. I can tell you, if you look in Rockland, you cannot go on not the Estes property, the property right across from their town hall where they had the fire. They will not let you on that property because they can't.
So there's no concern that the contaminants are in any way affecting where the karate school is then?
I don't see anything that has been indicated in the report. Like I said, I would certainly take advantage of the fact that you have an LSP, and they can look at that if they think it's traveling. But generally, our concern with these types of projects would be, I wouldn't grow vegetables there.
I was gonna say, no community gardens.
I wouldn't do
in
a
that
community
corner.
garden there. I would not,
Grow good.
necessarily, do mud baths there. But even for that, where the karate school is, it's cleared for use in that building. So that's an approved use for that site. And there's different levels of what the EPA and Mass DEP will let you do on a site based on how clean it would be. It's a much higher standard for home ownership, daycares, and schools than even for rental properties where they can tell you can't have a garden, than it is for a business where you can cap it, and then where it is for an industrial area. So.
It's really that first floor, like Ed was saying, the vapor, and the release of the vapor. Some of these projects that get a activity use limitation and AUL we'll say, you know, the first floor will have to be all parking, or only commercial, and residential could be at the top. So you're dealing with a lot of the vapor issues trapped in the building.
The system that was explained sounds a lot like residential radon, you know,
Very
where,
similar.
you know,
Very similar.
so I'm familiar with that at least. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cormier-Legge. Councilor Sheridan.
So just to clarify, thanks for all the work you did today. Just to clarify, you don't have to do much for the brook, you don't think? As far as cleaning up?
I would have your LSP test again, but I think that indications so far from and you've had LSP reports going back to the 2008, and where you had work done, and then 2012, and then 2015, and then 2017. So people have been paying attention to this over time, and I've had the pleasure of working with Brian on this, and he has a book that would rival most other issues with all of that information. So I think that's something they've been paying attention to, but it's always good to have your LSP look at it again.
But definitely no fishing.
I'm not an LSP, I can't.
Well, and
I
it's,
can't say that.
and it's important too that the LSP, because the standards are always changing, the science is always improving, but there's not a petroleum, you know, if there's petroleum leakage and things like that,
Yeah.
that water would definitely be a bigger concern.
Okay.
But check with your LSP
Thank
on
you.
that.
Thank you, Councilor Sheridan. Jamie, and then I'm going to go to Councilor Jones.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple, just on this issue, and I do have a question at the end after everybody else is gone. I just want to, before we all go down the road of getting additional heightened, I think, concern for this and the metals that are there and the contamination, I just want to point out a couple things. One, the town has already done $500,000 worth of remediation of taking those materials out. Half of that, I believe 200,000, I think it was back in '08, was from the EPA. Number two, many of you, if not all of you, are familiar with 300 Fisher Street, which does have a much higher designation than what we're talking about here. The folks in the DPW who are outside deal with DEP, as we know, every day. I can assure you, if this was to be fenced off, labeled, cautioned, and with remedial orders, we would have already seen it, and we would have already been told through and through to do something about it. I think the fact that $500,000 worth of remediation, and I say Fisher Street because that was one of those scenarios where it was fenced off. There was nobody allowed down there. If many remember, and I know Councilor Jones remembers because he's asked about it a couple times, there's EPA trucks down there that have lined up that were on the street to do that remediation. So I just want to kind of set the expectation, or at least a little, that if there was something to be done, we would have absolutely already been told to do it. And so I do think the site, for the most part, especially with the karate school and other adjacent properties for the time being, is safe. And I think, except for swimming, fishing, and that you pointed out, and
Please don't
bathing,
garden.
you know, which is hopefully common sense by this point. But the DPW also did put out boulders. We were having some people trying to go around in there, and if folks drive down Grove Street, you'll see the boulders lined out to prevent the traffic. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think for many of us who have been around for a while, the word new style just, brings goosebumps, because it's just one of those tax takes that town just made a mistake on. But in all honesty, from what I heard tonight, I think a lot of the proposals that have been put on the table are viable. We've been trying to get rid of this piece of property now for some time, and we haven't really been able to come up with a useful way of mitigating the problem. So land swap, that works absolutely. I think it's it's within our duty to clean up this piece of property, mainly because of its proximity to Mine Brook, plus the significance of the land. I mean, the land is, as it's so eloquently stated tonight, is in a generally prime location. It's just off of Grove Street. It's just, I'm sorry, I'm calling it exit 17. I don't know what it's called now. But it's in a generally great location that we could, in fact, either make our money back or make a profit off of the sale of property in the future based on its mitigation once it's complete. I like a lot of the ideas that I've heard tonight, and hopefully we can all agree on some of the concepts that came forth today. Other than that, I'd just like to see this ball moving forward because the more we wait, the more these problems can propagate towards my brook, and I just don't want that to happen. That's my 2 cents, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Jones. Councilor Pellegrini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank you for everything that you've offered us tonight. I'm sitting here with hesitation because I'm saying we've had so many problems with this piece of land, and now we're being asked to look into the piece of land that's next door to it. Is that going to be double trouble for us now?
I think it's
Because we don't know, we don't know what's there. And if we're going to purchase or trade, you're saying, or whatever. For the years that we've gone through this with New Style, I'm hesitant.
I think the only way you'll know is to actually do the testing. A private owner doesn't have to let you on their property to test it. They were one parcel at one point. You as a town know what was done on the parcel. That's the best I can tell you. I mean, I would really work with your LSP.
Jamie.
Could you just go back to the green line slide real quick? I really thought someone would ask, and I'm willing to close this door. But I just have to ask, I respect opposition. We get a lot of it sometimes. But let's just say everybody did agree and at least kept an open mind. What's your take on the concept that's up there right now and the potential and what could happen? I mean, we've talked about this with the LSP, we've talked about this with planners, it didn't seem like there were more roadblocks, and I'm just curious to get your forest view, if you will, or whatever kind of take you have on this concept.
Well,
Go ahead. You started first.
Frankly, Beth Franklin, the upper parcel owned by Procon right now has access to that site. The site has topography issues.
Okay.
Okay. So and where the green line is in the most usable portion of that site, the site next to it. And then you're going to do a taking in front of the only residential non-conforming parcel in that collection of spaces, which is really not of interest to the owner to have a 50-foot wide roadway going right in front of his house where he now has privacy in a brook in his backyard.
Yeah.
So that I think.
Although I would add contamination as well.
Yeah, so I think we stated that there's really not great interest for that in the community, and when you're looking at the top of it where you want to make a roadway all the way through, there's opposition.
Okay.
So it's going to dead end somewhere if you did work on it.
It's a great thought, and we're not dead set against it. And when we were looking at all the options and hearing from everybody, I completely get where this idea comes from. And it's tough. Like Ed said, the best part of the topography for the property on the left is right there. You solve a couple of problems, but you spend a lot of money on a roadway, adding utilities for two private owners to maybe work around some of these issues then on the right side and access issues. And we really picked apart. There are a lot of access issues. I guess it's worth highlighting, not just the cleanup part, but the access issues and the road being now private and frontage and non-conforming issues that have just developed over time. So it is a tough nut to crack. But I think because of all those combined issues, this would be an uphill battle.
The reason why I ask, pun intended, right?
Yeah, pun intended.
The reason why I ask is when you take the land swap concept and you put the parcels jointly together and we talk about commercial development opportunities, I just want to point out that if that, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, down the road, you know, I just want to highlight that the two larger pieces inside do have some economic development potential. Obviously, the hotel is on the left side, the furthest. I believe there's a company with a second hotel that was originally planned, but I don't believe that would be necessarily right anymore. And I think that I just want to paint the picture that we respect the opposition and some of the challenges that are there from some of the stakeholders. We've talked to a lot of people in the past. Grove Street has some of the same issues. But maybe long after me or whoever, or maybe even long after Alicia, all of us, you know, somewhere down the line, there might still be possibility in being able to bridge some economic development through that area. So I appreciate that point.
I appreciate you brought that up because we were talking about, well, what happens next? And we're like, well, there's 20 different things that could happen. I wouldn't throw this away, to your point. You clean up that corner and there's the swap. There might be a road running through here with those two parcels together. We don't know where the private ownership will go in the future, but this certainly is not to be deleted and thrown away.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council? It would be nice if the state would just switch sides of the street. They can have that side and we'll take their side.
We've asked.
Yeah, it doesn't work. I get that. Folks, we can't thank you enough for spending the day out there and putting all the time and effort into presenting this to us. I know myself and Councilor Jones, Councilor DeLarco, Councilor Plager have been here a long time, and this comes up all the time. Every year, there's a new style discussion of some kind. So trying to see that there may be the glimmer of hope or a glimmer out there is something that's really, really great for me anyway, sitting here thinking about what could possibly happen. So thank you so much, and we'll be looking forward to your final report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is legislation for action. And the first legislation is resolution 22-32, salary schedule, full-time elected official, town clerk. Clerk will read the resolution.
Okay. Resolution 2232, salary schedule, full-time elected official. A resolution amending Appendix A, Chapter 4 of the Code of the Town of Franklin, entitled Salary Schedule, Full-Time Elected Official. Be it resolved by the Franklin Town Council that Appendix A, Salary Schedule, Full-Time Elected Official, Chapter 4 of the Code of the Town of Franklin is amended as follows. Appendix A, Salary Schedule, Full-Time Elected Official. The office of the town clerk, the incumbent salary now for $88,608 for fiscal year '23 would be $90,475. This resolution is effective for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022.
Second.
You gotta move it.
Oh, move resolution 22-32.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to amend that to $96,000.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the amendment?
Just clarify that, I remember reading, like, why don't they match up?
Yeah.
Is that all you're?
Yeah.
That's what we're saying? Okay, cool.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will read the roll on the amendment to the FY '23 salary to $96,000.
Okay. Amendment to 2232 from $90,000 $1,475 to 96.
96.
Okay. Roll call vote is Ledger.
I'm going to abstain from this, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Frangillo,
Yes.
Pellegri, yes. Hamblin,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Chalaco,
Yes.
and Mercer.
Yes.
Passes.
Motion carries. Okay, move on to resolution 20.
To vote one
Yeah,
way.
now
voted as amended.
Yeah.
Yes, the vote for it as amended.
I thought that's what we just did, as amended.
No,
He's voted for the amendment.
the new figure.
Okay, all right. All right, so
We're gonna-
move it as amended.
We're gonna move resolution 22-32 as amended.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion.
I just feel like I should do my due diligence. Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So this all, I appreciate their support. This sounds like the right thing to do. Can I get some, my understanding is that we think that we're very confident that the compensation classification study will show that our outstanding town clerk is underpaid. Is that, like, part of this is a very, sure understanding that this is going to come back as we should be bumping that.
There's a, through you, Mr. Chairman, there is a 100% chance that she is underpaid.
Perfect, thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Cormier Ledger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Along those lines, to the town administrator, Jamie, in your memorandum on June 3rd, along with Councilor Frangillo's point, can you just elaborate a little bit more in paragraph 2 about market adjustment commensurate with comparable communities of our same job title? I mean, I know we have a study that we're waiting on, but can you just elaborate a little bit more on which communities we're referring to? And this is in no means at all a slight on Nancy or the job that she's doing, just a question.
Sure. It's a phenomenal question, Councilor Cormier Ledger. So what has often, just for a little historical context, what often happens is there are numerous ways to do quote-unquote comparable communities. And our consultant has a fairly flawless methodology that's used widely around the country, but also here in Massachusetts, in a lot of cities and towns, comparing things not just about budgets or population, but a whole series of metrics to show about the overall market conditions for any job. So there's a relative nature. So it's going to be, so that salary study is going to be for all non-union employees. I hesitate to say the comparable communities right now because I don't want to jump ahead of the consultant in the study, but it's suffice to say it is not just area communities like Medway and Bellingham because they are much smaller budgets, much smaller elections, they have smaller populations, less work. Sometimes the work is not as complicated or as complex as our system here. And so really it looks at much more applicable metrics. It also measures distance. Okay, there's very, very few jobs where people, in municipal government, where people jump up and say, oh, I live in Newburyport, I'm gonna move to Franklin to get this job. There's only a handful of those, if that, where people would relocate. That'll be noted in the study. The dynamic where this position is appointed in a lot of communities and elected in a lot of communities will also be pointed out in the study. I've confirmed that with the consultant. So I'm hesitant to say, oh, it's this town, that town, this town, that town, just in case the study doesn't show exactly that. But you can rest assured it's going to be mostly communities around this 30-mile area of Franklin, in the circumference.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, the clerk will read the roll on resolution 22-32 as amended.
Okay. Ledger,
Abstain.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Frangillo,
Yes.
Pellegri, yes. Hamblin,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Delaco,
Yes.
and Mercer.
Yes.
Passes.
Motion carries. Moving on, Resolution 22-30, FY 22 Capital Plan Round 2. Clerk will read the resolution.
Capital Plan Fiscal Year 22, Round 2. Purpose to appropriate funds from free cash for the fiscal year 22 Capital Improvement Plan Round 2. Snow and Ice, DPW, $229,169. Technology, desktops, docking stations, and computers, $90,000. Roads, infrastructure, sidewalks, and SNET trail, DPW, $510,237 for a total of $829,406. Finance Committee action of 5-9, voted 9-0 to recommend the total amount. Capital Budget Subcommittee, 4-0, recommended the total amount of $829,406. So be it moved and voted by the Town Council that the sum of $829,406 be appropriated from free cash to be expended at the discretion of the Town Administrator for the fiscal year 22 Capital Improvement Plan Round 2, as outlined above, including any residual funds remaining in these line items. This resolution shall become effective according to the provisions of the Town of Franklin Home Rule Charter.
Move Resolution 22-30.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Jamie?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think Councilor Pellegri just said it all quite well. DPW is here to answer any questions if folks have them.
Councilor Pellegri, any comments from the Capital?
No, we went over everything at our meeting, and we're in agreement with this total.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Councilor Hamblin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question for the DPW about the SNET Trail. I'm really excited about this. I hope you guys are too. When are we gonna get to start on it, Brutus?
Be disappointed if Brutus didn't speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's going out to bid right now. We anticipated in an agreement we have with the state that we'd getting it done by the end of this fiscal year. So one of the things that came up was the material cost, but we've been working with DCR on that because what they want to put down is actually was anticipated, but they're going to support us on that and they're going to buy the materials. But yes, it's going out to bid now, so we should be done by this fall.
Could you let everyone know where the work is gonna be done?
So basically, it starts on Grove Street and it goes all the way through Bellingham. And if anybody, the best example of material they want to use is what they use over in Holliston. If anybody's used the trails over there, it's almost like it's not pavement, but it's a very compacted type soil that's easy to maintain in the future. It's water permeable. So that's the material they want to use. The only problem is that material is very expensive. It actually costs more than asphalt. But I think it's a better use of material. So like everybody else, we're looking for the long term out there.
Yeah.
So, and then we're also, where it crosses,
Spring?
Spring Street,
Yeah.
we're doing some drainage improvements there, we're able to get some
Good.
grants there, so that's all gonna be tied in at the same time.
That's great, because it really gets kind of muddy there on the Spring Street.
Correct, and then the other thing I'm gonna throw out there that Public Works is we're working on to take care of everybody is because people are really using that, we're gonna expand the parking lot that's right outside our well stations down there, that's something we're looking to do in-house.
Great.
So we're working through conservation right now to get that permitted, and basically gonna do a tiered parking lot. And it's gonna be one of the things we like to do, it's gonna be a benefit obviously for the community, but we have some of the materials that, if we do some road construction, so we can go ahead and move it over there, instead of taking off site. So it should be a win-win situation out there too. But that probably might not happen until next year.
Okay,
But that
that's
is in the
great.
plans.
That's great, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Hamblin. Any other councilors? Councilor Frangillo?
was hoping you could help me understand why snow and ice went up as much as it did. It might just be short-term memory that there was a lot more snow than the past 5 years.
So I think that snow and ice number, that's what we didn't spend that was anticipated. Is that what you're asking me? Why it went up?
Requesting $200,000 to, you originally budgeted $1 million, but you ended up expending
Okay.
1.2.
I'm sorry, you're correct. Yeah, so we did obviously a 5-year forecast. I think, remember I came back last year and I told you how salt
Right,
went from
salt went up.
$45 a ton to $65 a ton. So that, we had to deal with that, and I think folks remember this, we had 3 good storms that were very plowable, but I think you realize really we had a lot of the treatment of towns, so we ended up using a little more salt than anticipated, so that's what drove up the 200,000.
Okay.
Salt and ice this year.
Cool.
But we had, on record, we actually right on line with, as amount of snowfall, we were at 42 inches, I believe, and that's pretty much what we get all the time.
Jamie?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So the total amount here, 1.285 for snow removal, is pretty average.
Yeah.
I mean, we do the 5-year forecast and we do the average. That's what we put in the operating budget. If we did a 10-year, it might come around the same. It's a little higher. I hate to be this for next year because we're entering into summer, but with cost of fuel, I think next year is going to be a challenge. We're going to have to see those numbers are probably going to go up even higher. As Councilor DeLorco probably sees at Massport as well.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We might look back at this year and say this was cheap. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I know you are very conscious of oversalting, especially oversalting particular areas. We connected about that in the past. If I could be, I know that you hear a lot of voices saying, melt my roads as fast as you can. If I could be one voice to push back and say, we don't need to use excessive amounts of salt.
I will say, I am also that
roads.
voice too, when I do my snow and ice presentation. You've all seen the slides, and a water superintendent can say that, we use quite a bit of salt. We've used a lot less over the years. We've reduced it quite a bit, but we're conscious, because on my other hat is the water guy. We deliver water to you, and we want to keep the salt out of the water. So we're very conscious about the amounts we put down, the timing we put down, the right application. We use magnesium now instead of the basic chlorides, because that's actually less impactful, but it's more expensive. So we're constantly doing this. So I do appreciate that, and but then you got to go back to the residents, as you said, because we get the call up. I live over here, and there's a little ice on my road. Slow down.
Right.
I'm the first to say it. I'll say it on TV once again. If you're going down a subdivision road and you're doing 20, 25 miles an hour, you're not technically going to really go off the road and kill yourself. You might slide a little, so just slow down. You don't have to be doing 35, 40.
Yeah.
Slow down when it's out there, and then, that would save the town, that would save you, and it'd save all those calls. They want to call me up and tell me what a wonderful job.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you.
All right.
And then, I'm very excited about this network, and I'm really happy that Mike's worked with the Franklin Bellingham Rail Trail Committee and been very open and given timely information on that process and connected around the grants. They were actually the ones who applied for the drainage grant. So if anyone out there is interested in helping with some SNET advocacy, Franklin Bellingham Rail Trail Committee meets once a month on Tuesdays over beers at 67. Find them online and help make our SNET as good as it can be. Thanks.
Well, just to reiterate, that's what Franklin does great. We were out there 10 years ago talking about doing this, and it seemed like a pipe dream at the time. Next thing you know, we got it going. Then the state came up with the money to build the overpass. Like, we never knew how we were going to get under. When they came, a couple $100,000 for that, and now we're getting to this stage where the town, we're mitigating with the state, to help us out with our land swap area. So these are just the things that keep happening, and it speaks volumes for the town and the volunteers that come out. Because they're like, yeah, we're going to build this. I'm like, okay, 10 years later, here we are, right?
Yeah.
It's almost done. And now we're talking about building bigger parking lots because so many people use them, and that's cool, right?
Yeah.
So,
How's that, Councilor Frangillo?
That's it.
Any other questions from the council? Councilor Jones, did you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, quick comment in regards to the SNET trail. First of all, I think these are valid investments, no doubt about it. Brutus, to the point on the materials that you're gonna use on the SNET trail, have you considered or looked into the materials that they've used down at the Washington DC Mall? I was down in Washington this weekend. And what they've gone and done, in lieu of using pavement, thank God, for the whole stretch of the mall, it's basically like it's a small stone walkway. It's almost like a compact dirt with very small pebbles that they have for the like 12-10. I didn't know if that was something that would be considered a viable option for this net telescope. It looks relatively inexpensive considering the amount of foot area that there is on the wall. I didn't know if that was something you were familiar with.
Mr. Chair, through you. Honestly, I have no idea what they're using down there, but the product you're talking about is similar, what you're describing.
Yep.
We're going through DCR specs, because that's what they've, and I'm sure they've, being the bureaucracy they've looked at everything. So this is kind of their choice, and that's what we're going along with.
Understood.
All right, thank you, Councilor Jones. I just have one quick question. Jamie, the technology, where are those desktops and docking station computers?
It's a mix of both municipal and school employees.
That was what I wanted to make sure everybody understood that it was both.
If I recall correctly, Council Pellegrini, from the meeting, I think these were 2014. Yeah, okay. If I recall correctly, it was 2014 computers. These were the last of the nooks and crannies of various areas that had not had any upgrades in 8 years.
Yes, that's correct.
Good. Thank
Windows
you.
7, right. Second.
Any further questions? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll on resolution 22-30.
Okay, Ledger,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Frangillo,
Yes.
Pellegrini, yes. Hamblin.
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
DeLarco,
Yes.
Mercer.
Yes,
Passes.
motion carries. Resolution 22-34, gift acceptance, senior center, $100, fire department, $50. Clerk will read the resolution.
Acceptance of gifts, Senior Center and Fire Department, Resolution 22-34. Whereas the Senior Center and the Fire Department have received generous donations totaling $150 to be used at the discretion of each respective department as follows. Senior Center, $100. Donation will be applied towards services and programs for senior citizens in the Franklin community. And Fire Department, $50. Donation will be applied towards the purchase of safety and other related equipment. Please see attached memo dated June 3rd for donor information.
Move resolution 22.
Oh, she's not done yet.
Oh, you're not done? Well, you gotta read a lot quicker.
I'm being distinct. Okay, now therefore be it resolved that the town council of the town of Franklin, on behalf of the senior center and the fire department, gratefully accept these generous donations to be used at the discretion of the senior center and the fire department. This resolution shall become effective according to the provisions of the town of Franklin Home Rule Charter.
Move resolution 22-34.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Jamie, do we have the donors? Usually they're listed on the,
They're in the memo.
they're in the memo, but
Right.
they're not in the motion so that the people don't hear.
Oh.
And we
I didn't
Mola
realize
and
we had
Ranieri.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's Paul and Christine Mola and Mary and Donald Ranieri for the fire department, just for the record.
okay. Thank you. I just think we should have them in the resolution
I'm
because
gonna
we
put
did.
here, add to.
Okay. Any discussion? Further discussion?
Thank you.
Seeing none, the clerk will read The motion to approve Resolution 22-34. A majority roll call votes required. Clerk will call the roll.
Ledger,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Frangillo,
Yes.
Pellegri, yes. Hamblin?
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Delaco,
Yes.
and Mercer.
Yes.
Passes.
Motion carries. Resolution 22-35, cable funds in support of PEG service and programming per Mass General Law, Chapter 44, subsection 53F 3/4. Clerk will read the resolution.
Motion to waive the reading.
Second.
Okay.
No roll call for this. Okay, motion and second to waive the reading. Clerk will call the roll to waive the reading.
Ledger,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Frangillo,
Yes.
Pellegri, yes. Hamblin?
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Delaco,
Yes.
Mercer.
Yes. Motion carries.
22.
Now,
Move resolution 22-35.
Second.
motion and a second. Discussion. Jamie?
What's that, Mr. Chairman? I mean, I waive my
It's our
remarks.
monthly due diligence.
Thank you.
Again.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, the vote will come on the motion to approve Resolution 22-35. A majority roll call votes required. Clerk will call the roll.
Okay. Wait a second. For the cable funds,
Yep. That was.
to
that
waive
was
the
to waive
reading.
the reading.
Yeah. Okay. Ledger,
Yes.
Sheridan.
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Frangillo,
Yes.
Pellegri, yes. Hamblin?
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Delaco,
Yes.
Mercer.
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, moving on. Resolution 22-39, authorizing the additional borrowing of money to pay additional costs of the Beaver Street Interceptor Replacement Project. Clerk will read the resolution. Somebody want to waive this one, please?
Waive the reading. Motion to waive the reading. Motion to waive the reading.
Second.
Motion and a second to waive the reading. Roll
Okay.
call vote. Clerk will call the roll.
Ledger,
Yes.
Sheridan.
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Frangillo,
Yes.
Pellegri, yes. Hamblin?
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Delaco,
Yes.
Mercer.
Yes.
See, and you thought my job was easy.
Move resolution 22-39.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Jamie?
Simple, you know, obviously there's a couple slides, we got the team here. At the end of the day, the cost of inaction is,
Since we waived the reading, maybe we could get a brief summary.
well, we
Just-
will, we've
Okay.
got a little thing up here, so, really quickly though, we're at the, in the final stages of applying and getting authorization for the SRF loan, which is a state program. Because we're a housing choice community, just for 4 years, we can save another 0.5% on the interest rate, which is huge. That's millions and millions of dollars on a project like this. And so we really, as everybody I think in the room agrees, we know we have to get this started. I know the sticker shock, I feel it myself. We authorized $25 million earlier this year for the Beaver Street Interceptor project, and unfortunately, due to the costs globally, all the stuff we all heard about, the cost is now at $33 million. As we've been going through the application process with the state, they've wanted us to update this. And as I said in the memo, and I think you're gonna hear this from Scott and Brutus and Doug and Jake and everybody, we all know that the cost of inaction and the potential catastrophe that looms far exceeds the additional $8 million that's we're being requested to authorize on this project. I would just note, just because we're authorizing it does not mean we have to spend it. So as this goes over the next few years, and as the shovel hopefully hits the ground in a couple years, we can all keep our fingers crossed that maybe fuel, petroleum, asphalt, labor, whatever it is, can help come down. I do not believe the cost of labor will be, because that means people make less money. That's not a good thing, but obviously materials and stuff of that sort. So Brutus has promised me, and Scott has promised me, there's only a couple slides, just so they can show where the cost, they really want to show where the cost drivers are, so the public is aware of where the additional $8 million in authorization is. Brutus, Scott, or who? Jake?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Bruce.
So, yeah,
Introduce
Yes,
yourself.
I'm joined by Doug Martin, he's the Water and Sewer Superintendent, and Jacob Stanley. He's the Assistant Water Superintendent, and we have a couple of folks from Arcadis if they need to come up and get technical questions. Jamie kind of oversaid it, just to remind everybody, this is a 108-year-old piece of infrastructure, and this picture is one of my favorite because it shows exactly where it is, the worst place possible. You could put a sewer line next to a river by train tracks on the other side of 140. So when I came to you back in October of 2020, that was the point we went ahead and we hired a firm to go ahead and figure out how much this is going to cost. And the estimation at the time, we're just throwing darts. So they went through a bunch of stuff, studies, borings, look at anything, meet with the railroad, you name it, we've been doing this. So where we're at right now, see, that's why I got him. So, project updates, the new Beaver Street pump station in Forest, Maine, basically 6 million gallon pump station, 3 pumps. That's gonna be located near the rec center on Beaver Street. We're going to put in 4,000 linear feet of 18-inch force main from the pump station to discharge on Pond Street. Basically, in layman's terms, we're going up 140, which is gonna be interesting. When we got state permits. We're rehabbing about 6,100 feet of existing pipe, and we're gonna basically cure it in place. That's that plastic lining we've done on town, various locations. We're installing 6,000 linear feet of new gravity sewers. We've been working with the MBTA and Keolis. If anybody's worked with the railroad, that's very interesting. I won't even get into that. But luckily, we have 5 locations that we have to cross. 3 of them will be jack in place. Basically, you go down, you dig underneath it, and they'll be there when that happens. We got 2 pipe rehabilitations that cured in place, and obviously we're abandoning the existing Beaver Street interceptor from Panther Way to Franklin Village Plaza and Route 495 crossing. We anticipate bidding August this year. Part of the timing, what's going on is we have to have the authorization from the council to spend the appropriate amount of money to be considered for SRF funding. And I think Jamie brought up a good point. We came to you with the water treatment plant, and it was 15 million, and we did come in under budget on that. So that is, but we have to be able to do that, or we won't be eligible. So where we're at right now, the Beaver Street interceptor replacement cost, construction is basically 28 million. Construction and post-construction engineering, obviously, we got to make sure everything works and it's all done correctly. Police details. So it comes out to basically $33 million. This is by far the biggest public works job that's ever been done in Franklin, cost-wise. It's a 30-month construction duration. These costs anticipate obviously a 15% contingency and escalation. That could go up more, so it's actually less than that, or it could go down, but that's just how we do things. Bidding and awarding service are included in construction engineering and are SRF eligible, so that means we get the low interest loan. The initial study that we had to do, that was appropriations directly from the sewer fund, so we didn't borrow that one. Basically, we had it in place. The good thing we found out, Doug's been doing a good job with this, there's potential loan forgiveness. What that means is there's about 30 million?
Yeah, there's going to be, through the bill by bipartisan infrastructure law, There is an appropriated amount for clean water SRF financing. 49% of, I think it was like 60 million, is going towards affordable communities. So there's an affordability tier that those communities need to meet. Those are your New Bedfords, Fall Rivers, those kind of communities.
We don't meet that.
Yeah. The remaining 50% is going to be split up amongst the remaining communities. So we will get that chunk of change, was about 30 million. However, we won't know what that number is going to be until everyone submits their loan applications in October, and then the state works out what the numbers are.
But basically, we could get a couple grand off or a couple million off our loan.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking.
And the nice thing about this, I tell you, doing this in the past with SRF, this percentage actually rather high for loan forgiveness. Usually it always goes to the impoverished communities for loan forgiveness.
Yeah.
So this is actually kind of cool for us. that
This is
we're
an
actually-
added benefit.
Yeah.
Normally, we wouldn't be, other than the housing choice percentage off, which is huge, like Jamie said, we wouldn't qualify for any loan forgiveness, so.
So this is a good, another
Yeah.
reason to get it in. And Jamie kind of touched on some of these things, cost increase factors. Obviously, I started with the ones I think everybody knows. Fuel inflation's gone up, supply issues, availability of materials impacted some of our design decisions, like what materials we're gonna use, because some was cheaper than others, or more expensive. But the project factors, this is part of the study that we did, exposed pipe on West Central Street, wetland soil conditions required pilings, that's down by, BJ's. So where the pipes gotta go across there, we actually have to raise it up and use concrete, so we didn't know that, it just cost money. Rehabilitating the Grove Street siphon chambers, that was probably the study, we gotta go ahead and fix that, that's existing stuff. Groundwater on Grove Street, anytime you're putting a pipe in the ground, you have to call dewatering. It's, you gotta treat it, and it's expensive, just to get the water out so we can put the pipe in. Rerouting the Beaver Street interceptor around Franklin Paint, this is kinda interesting. The interceptor actually goes right through Franklin Paint, way back in the day.
Goes under the building.
Yeah, right under their building. So we kinda wanna go around that, I mean, that kinda makes sense.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they probably like, oh yeah, put it there, cause it's perfect, but that doesn't make sense anymore.
We wanna have access to it, so.
Yeah. They're closed, sorry, you can't come in. Additional paving on the state and town road, as we figured everything out, and then the cost of that. And then replacing, abandoning existing adjacent utilities, stuff that's already out there that we had to move, or just because of grading and stuff like that. So those are the actual things, whether we had inflation or anything else would have drove the cost up that we did not know, that's why we did the study. So that's basically where we're at with it. And I'm sorry to bring bad news about this.
Thank you, Brutus. Questions from the council? Councilor Frangillo.
Yeah, two questions. One, we're very proud of our AAA bond rating. Did that affect this process at all? Like, do we?
I believe SRF funding is, it's pretty standard at 2%. That's what the loan would be. And then obviously with the housing choice, you get the 0.5% deduction. So I don't believe so. Jamie can correct me if I'm wrong.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the AAA bond rating has no effect because the entire point of the SRF program, as well as the Clean Water Trust, I mean, essentially their sole purpose is to have a fixed rate on public infrastructure projects relative to water and sewer. No, realizing obviously those are public goods that we need to have a civil society. The one benefit that did not come into play until recently was the Housing Choice Program, which we were a member of from the start, and we missed it by a week. We got into a lot of fights with DEP about it, but we got the 2% automatic loan on the water treatment plant, but our patience and diligence on Housing Choice hopefully will pay off on this, where we'll be at 1.5%. By contrast, the AAA bond rating, when we went out to borrow from Maple Hill just a month ago, was at 3.3% interest rate. So we want the SRF loan for sure, because that'll cut the project cost over more than half.
Yeah. Plus, in addition to get the loan forgiveness, the monies that are available, we have to go through the SRF program.
We didn't set aside money over time to pay for this, why we have to go out and borrow 35 million. Would we consider a stabilization fund for something, for a project like this going forward?
Through you, Mr. Chairman,
ahead, Jim.
we wouldn't consider that at all because of the SRF program. If the SRF program weren't here, every city or town would be on a different plane on these things. The SRF program was designed essentially to take those choices off the table and present a streamlined program system for cities and towns to make sure they can manage the costs. Otherwise, could you imagine when interest rates were 8, 9, 10, 13%, 30, 40 years ago on a project like this, nobody would be financing them. I mean, they wouldn't have the money to do it. So kudos to the state decades ago for setting this up with the Clean Water Trust, but we wouldn't set up a stabilization account or a savings account or anything like that. This is the only real way to go.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess from maybe this is too high level, but this is potentially a 100-year project. We don't know what the world will look like. We're lucky that the government borrows, an infinite amount of money to help make it so that we don't have to worry about how much we're paying on infrastructure. But if someday they don't, then those who put money aside will be better off than those who didn't.
Through Mr. Chair, I mean, you're correct. I think it's been about your ability to pay. It's tough to say. I mean, if the town 50 years ago started putting away 50 cents in a piggy bank, maybe there'd be money there, but obviously, the town wasn't thinking about that even at year 70 of the pipe. So I don't know, it's hard to say. But we're at where we're at, and this is certainly the best option for sure.
Thank you, Councilor Frangillo. Any other councilors? Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Brutus, quick question. What is the expected timeline for completion again?
30 months.
30 months.
30 months.
30 months, starting approximately how hopeful?
Oh, we hope to start this fall. We gotta,
Okay.
we
What
got-
is
we got
the
a schedule.
likelihood, what would be actually, I guess my real question is, would be the significance of us potentially maintaining the old Beaver Street interceptor once the new one is built in order to kind of lessen the capacity in A, on the new one, and B, just to kind of keep the old one working, or is there just a plan to demolish and do away with the old one?
Well, Council,
Go ahead.
I think it's just been presented all along and that we've been talking that we have done everything we possibly could to extend the life of this infrastructure through cleaning, sealing and everything else. We are at capacity right now, and we're at the point now where, hey, you wanna go to Vegas? Roll the dice. The best example I can talk about is Plymouth. In their sewer's 1/3 the size of ours, and it cost them $70 million after theirs blew up, just because they had to do it right then now. So we're planning on it, we're actually ultimately saving money. It has to be done, and we've been talking about this for a long time.
I understand that. What I'm getting at is, once the new one is complete, would it be in our interest to keep the old Beaver Street interceptor functional, even at some capacity?
No, we actually looked at that was part of our study. We looked at putting another one next to it, keep using that one as, redundancy and everything else. The costs were just too prohibitive, and then potentially, even if we were using it, if it could still fail. And actually, I believe by not using it or using limited capacity would increase the failure rate, because believe it or not, the way it's being used now, we're keeping it clear, because it's so capacity. It's like a water pipe, it's under pressure, which you don't want in a sewer.
Right.
Plus at the end of the day, you still have a 109-year-old plus piece of infrastructure in a wetland area. It's not a real good spot for, so.
Right, which leads me to the next question. What do we do with that old Beaver Street interceptor once we're complete with our new project? It's part of the project cost to get rid of the remaining pipe? Is that true?
Yeah, we fill it with grout.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as
solid piece.
Included in that cost number, there was money for abandoning in place and filling sections, so remove manholes and that kind of stuff.
All right, so you foam it up.
Yep.
Yep. When we get to that point,
That's
we will be having a celebration, and I will leave.
Can we get a picture of you sitting inside the pipe like from 100 years ago, and you can be
Getting it done, absolutely.
Thank you, Councilor Jones. Councilor Cormier Ledger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question was answered because I didn't understand what abandoning quite meant, so thank you for that. I guess my next question is, I'm sure you have, but have we fully thought through economic impact to businesses or even inconvenience to residents for 30 months? Like, what are we doing? Because it's going to obviously cause a huge traffic problem, cause a huge just issue for 3 years, which is necessary, but I just want to make sure we're thinking through communicating that to those businesses and residents and maybe helping in whatever way we can.
Yeah, and, Mr. Chairman, yes, we did, and we understand it's gonna be a big thing, it's gonna be a big impact, particularly on business. As we had very well trained with the downtown project, when we redid that. You know, obviously, it takes a lot of public outreach, it takes a lot, we do the best plans, but different things will come up. The contractors are very aware of this. We looked at different design things, actually, instead of doing open trench, we're gonna be doing some underground. We are doing open trench, okay, because
we did look at the feasibility to directional drill. Unfortunately, the subsurface characteristics over there aren't, don't really make it feasible for us to do that. So, but all the work is going to be primarily in one of the 140 lanes, correct? Northbound lanes. So we'll limit impact as much as possible. And obviously, you saw the police number. There's a lot of money in there for traffic control. So.
And one thing, we were able to take out the intersection of the Stop and Shop Plaza. Will not be affecting that. We'll be going off to the old West Central Street. So that's a huge intersection we have to deal with.
Are there any areas that you anticipate are going to be like badly affected?
It depends on the business and everything else. Yeah, there'll be folks up there, and it's like any other construction project. When we say 30 months, they're not gonna be affected for 30 months. They'll be affected more, say, 1 or 2 weeks when it's in front of the property.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Okay.
And we work with those folks. It's always been business open signs we'll put up. And we'll notify them in advance.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of weeks, I think people will sort of bear with it. If it was a terribly long time and they were losing customers or something, they might come at us looking for a different solution, but we'll deal with it when it comes.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I would add, I don't want to speak for contractors, but on average, once they get going, they're probably doing about 100 to 200 feet a day. So they can move pretty quickly to put that main in.
Great, thank you.
Councilor Chandler.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the men. When you first presented this to us and we voted on it, you gave us 3 options. And we all voted on the most expensive option, which was the best one. I know this is tough because it's gone up, 20-something% to 8 million? But the reason I'm bringing that up is I need everyone at home to understand when they're asking me these questions, this has to be done. It has to be done. There's no way around it. So that's the answer. We have to do it. And to Councilor Cormier Leggett's point, you're gonna get a big dig joke for 3 years every day when you walk in the coffee shop, but it's gotta be done. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Chandler. Councilor DeLarco.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, guys. That's a great, I agree with Councilor Chandler. It has to be done, and I have a sister-in-law that lives in Plymouth, and you just, for everybody out there, you really don't want to know what her tax bill is now, because it is outrageous. So, so just letting everybody know out there, they got hit really bad, so.
Mr. Chairman, Councilor DeLarco is exactly right. Where they had to finance that $70 million, this is all being funded out of user fees, people that use the sewer, how we do our debt services. Plymouth found itself in a place, they actually had to go to the tax base, and less than 25% of their residents are on sewer in Plymouth. It's mostly for the downtown area, and I think everybody knows how big Plymouth is. So they actually had to take the additional funding, almost $40 million, they had to finance out of the general fund. So you're exactly right, it went back to taxes. I mean,
So we don't want that.
You know, we don't want that, and that would be, you know, this is a big number to absorb, don't get me wrong, that we have potential SRF money, but if we had to borrow money now through 3.8, just to pay for that, it's a very valid point, and we just don't wanna go, we put it off as long as we could, so.
Thank you. Any other counselors? I guess the only thing I would close in saying, for 30 months, we sit here like this. And just cross our fingers that it holds out for the 30 months. Okay, seeing no further discussion, the vote will come on the motion to approve Resolution 22-39. A 2/3 majority roll call votes required. Clerk will call the roll.
Okay, Ledger?
Yes.
Sheridan?
Yes.
Chandler?
Yes.
Frangillo?
Yes.
Pellegri, yes. Hamblin?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Delaco?
Yes.
Mercer?
Yes. Motion carries. Gentlemen, thank you very
No,
much.
thank you.
Ladies and
Thank
gentlemen,
you.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for coming and hanging around.
Keep up the good work.
Okay, moving on, Town Administrators Report.
All set, Mr. Chairman.
I love those town administrators.
What? How can you do that?
I know.
Wow.
You can get
The
away with
shock and
that.
awe.
Occasionally. Subcommittee reports, capital,
No report?
no report. Budget, there's no report. EDC, there's always a report.
There's always a report from the Economic Development Subcommittee. You are absolutely correct, Mr. Chairman. Today, we met earlier before the meeting with the EDC. The town administrator is still laughing. The steering committee for the Franklin for All project. We will be meeting on August 10th at 7 o'clock, at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, when we have more time to discuss the final, after the final recommendations from the Franklin for All project comes to us, and so we're all gonna pick our top 3 and see where the cards fall. But we wanna make sure that we have, that we give the staff direction, and so, because they can't do everything at once, so we're gonna try to make sure that we have our priorities in order. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Hamblin. Okay, no other subcommittee reports. We'll move to future agenda items. Councilor Sheridan,
Nothing at this time.
Councilor Frangillo.
A possible agenda item
Okay.
for next meeting. I am very proud to be working with a whole bunch of volunteers who are putting Franklin's first Pride Day and Pride Celebration event together at the end of this month, the 26th. That week we have a meeting, and I don't think that the town has ever officially recognized Pride Month. And I thought it might be an opportunity for us to,
Absolutely.
recognize as a town June as Pride Month. So I'd like to see that if we can.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Frangillo. Councilor Hamblin.
Nothing at this time.
Councilor Cormier-Ledger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given our discussion during the last budget meeting, can we ask Chairman Kay Kelly to come to a future meeting and talk to us about the Franklin Cultural Council?
Got that, Jimmy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Chandler.
Nothing at this time.
Councilor Pellegri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to see and invite the Preservation Commission, the committee, to come before us.
The Historical Commission?
CPC.
Oh, CPA, oh, CPC, oh, okay.
Yeah. Just so that they can let us know what they've done and how the money's been expended and what they have and all of that.
They just met last night, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I'll talk to the chair,
Talk
Feely,
to
and
the chair.
all the 3 recommendations that they approved last night will be on the June 22nd agenda anyway.
So they
for
might-
the appropriation, so I'll invite them to see if anybody
if
wants
they'll
to.
come.
Yeah, that would be good.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Plagley. Councilor DeLorco.
Nothing at this time.
So, Councilor comments. Councilor Cormier Ledger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say thank you to our Veterans Administration and everybody who put the beautiful Memorial Day celebrations together for town. Both the breakfast and the services on the Common were, truly top-notch, and I think a wonderful tribute to our veterans and to our fallen. And to Councilor Frangilo's point, I do want to wish everybody in town of the LGBT community a very happy Pride Month. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Chandler.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, to piggyback on the Memorial Day, I actually saw Bob Catalano in the barber shop. I shook his hand and said thank you for everything he did that day. He did a great job. He was appreciative, and it was nice to see him out. And one quick thing. Last time, I told you guys that I finally got rid of my answering machine, but
You brought it back?
And I've been waiting for calls, and I've been answering all the telemarketers thinking they were residents on my cell phone, but if you get a chance, Julie, in the back, they never changed it on the town website. So the number's 508-922-9036. It's no longer my 528-2312, my half fire, half police phone number. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Chandler. Councilor Sheridan.
I just want to say thank you to the veterans too, and the Veterans Administration. It was a very nice event, and hopefully see everybody Friday at the Strawberry Festival, and then Sunday the event for the Ukraine, which is at 5, I think.
Thank you. Councilor Frangillo.
Yeah, I am hyped for the month of June. It might be the most exciting month of the year for Franklin, starting this week. If you look up Art Walk, I mean, there's so many events, you could just find them all. Franklin Art Walk, but the stroll, the story walk, art. It's just amazing to see so many of our organizations working together. The Cultural District, Downtown Partnership, Franklin Arts Association, Cultural Council, they're all working together, just putting on a whole series of events that are going to be very exciting. Yeah, there's still a war going on in Ukraine, and people losing their lives and livelihoods, and so I'm excited to see that there's a group getting together to stand in solidarity. That's 5 on Sunday at the Town Common. And the 2 other events, 12 to 4 on June 26th, Pride Day at Town Common. Don't miss that. That's going to be a blast. And also a Juneteenth open mic at the library on the 18th at 2 p.m. So many exciting things. Hope to see you all there.
Thank you, Councilor Frangillo. Councilor Hamlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To add on to the Memorial Day, to thank everyone who was involved in that. I just wanted to thank everyone who was involved in the graduation on last Friday, facilities, DPW, all the school department and the band. It was a wonderful ceremony. I want to thank the DPW, the Boston Bruins Foundation, and especially Ryan Jetty, the best rec department leader anywhere, for the great celebration of opening of the the street hockey rink at Fletcher Field. That was a wonderful thing. It's great to see all the families out having fun. Okay, we already talked about the strawberry stroll, but we did not let people know that Dean College parking is open to the public. So if you want to park at Hillside or near the Student Center, those parking lots are open to you. Also, handicapped and senior parking is behind Dean Bank. And there will be the official opening of the Ladybug Trail, which is another thing that's going on, along with Art Week and everything else that's happening in Franklin, which is really exciting. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Hampton. Councilor Pellegrini. Oh. Well,
Yeah.
he goes
No,
next.
I go
I already
next.
did that.
You are the clerk. You did that. Oh, all right. Well, I don't have anything to add. Everything has been said, so I say ditto to everyone's comments. We just have to be so proud of our community, Franklin, Mass. It does so much for the people, and I thank you for all the volunteers.
Thank you. Councilor Jones.
What they said.
Okay. Thank you. Feel better.
Feel better,
better.
brother. Feel better.
Councilor DeLarco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everybody said everything. It is a wonderful month for the town of Franklin. It's gonna be awesome. Unfortunately, I'm going away, so I won't be at the Strawberry Stroll, but I hope everybody has a good time. And the Memorial Day Parade, it was so awesome to block off that street that we've been talking for the last couple of years, and the bells weren't going, and you could actually hear it. Everybody, great job, Jamie. That's awesome.
Fire chief, fire chief.
And I just want to let everybody know, as of August 1st, the Safe Coalition is going to be moving from Norfolk. We're going to sign a lease down at the Mosley Mills for 4,600 square feet, because we really need it. So it's awesome. And Norfolk was great, but it's just too small. This is going to be much bigger, much better. So, and plus, we originated in Franklin, so it's good to be home. So it's moving.
Excellent. I would reiterate all my fellow councilors, June's gonna be a great month, a lot of activity going on in town. I'd like to thank the youth hockey kids that were here this evening, and the Franklin High School Theater Group that was here this evening. Those are the fun things we get to do every once in a while, bringing these groups in and recognizing them. And I think it's really good for the community to see that recognition come from us as the town council. So with that, there is a need for executive session, but I do need to recuse myself from the executive session. So I'm going to turn the gavel over to Vice Chairman DeLarco, who will handle the rest of the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful evening.
Good night, Mr. Chairman. You can get him on the phone, right?
Yeah, good.
You're good.
Prepared. You're good.
All right. So there is a need for executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property because of an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. And the chair so declares, Schmitz Farm, Prospect Street. Motion.
Debbie needs to read that.
Debbie, you need to read that.
Read the same thing.
Read the same thing that he just read?
That I just read.
You make the motion.
Okay, okay.
You make the motion, I just,
No problem. To go into executive session, exemption number 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property because an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. This will be for Schmidt Farm, Prospect Street.
And not to resume an open session.
The motion.
And not to resume an open session.
Oh, and not to resume an open session.
Second.
there's a motion and a second. Clerk will call roll.
Okay. Ledger,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Frangillo,
Yes.
Pellegri, yes. Hamlin,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
yes. DeLarco,
Yes.
and Tom has been recused. Okay.
Motion passes.
Mhm.
Glenn, we're gonna call you.